Welcome all to the second episode of the Addy Dave podcast. In this episode, I spoke with Carla, an incredibly intelligent woman interested in the direction of modern society. I learned about the positives and negatives of media, including how it helps us to learn about the world. At the same time, I learned about the role of the media in creating political division, mass thinking, and hatred and resentment amongst people in society. I believe the pathway to love and acceptance is deeper knowledge and understanding of perspectives that are different from yours and perspectives that are the same as yours. Although we aren't PhD geniuses, we did try and we do try to learn about the world around us. So go easy, and I hope you all enjoy. Thank you. Carla, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, I've been really excited to discuss what we're about to discuss, mainly because I work at the Supreme Court at the moment, and there's something about the media which brings a case to life.
Totally.
We go through 50 to 60 cases a week, probably more between the 7 or 8 judges there are. And it's kind of just churned through, filtered through, and you don't pay much attention to the details. But when a journalist comes into the court, or there's several cameras, or you see it in the evening, you're like, wow, this is insane. And you kind of get a perspective about what you're doing and what you're witnessing. And so I've been fascinated at the ability of the media to bring something to life.
Yeah.
So I guess my first question is, what is the impact of the media on our daily lives, whether that's subconscious or conscious?
I think, first of all, we have to sort of think about how much media we actually consume a day.
Yep.
Because a lot of that is subconscious. Like, a lot of it isn't consciously, like us deciding, I'm going to search up an article because I heard something about this and so I want to know more about it. It's actually just, you'll be on Instagram, you're scrolling through Instagram or on TikTok or Facebook, and you come across all of these different pieces of content, right? Most of it's bite-sized nowadays, but you're actually just consuming information all the time. And so it's in our human behavior. It's a part of our entertainment. It's how we're entertained, right? Is by consuming, by learning, by seeking knowledge, right? So, but what I find the media, and if we're talking about the mainstream media and like news outlets, their role is to deliver us information that we, the public, have a right to know, right?
Sure.
Or that we might be interested in, what they think is going to interest us. Of course, we have to remember that it's an industry. So there's a lot of money in the media industry. And so there's always going to be a part of it that sort of goes more towards getting clicks and eyes and attention for, that converts directly to cash. And there's all this advertising and marketing that plays into it as well. But, traditionally the role of the media is to, and journalists and outlets is to deliver us information that we have a right to know.
Cool. And they have an obligation to be objective, or no?
I would say that in a perfect world, totally. I would hope so. But sure. I think that there's also importance in people having opinions and being driven by their morals. But I don't think that obligation is as clear nowadays as it probably was in the beginning.
Right. So if you were to put a percentage on it, say 30 years ago, 20 years ago maybe, what would have been the percentage of objective media compared to opinion media versus now?
Wow. Look, I would say percentage-wise, and I mean, I don't actually know, but percentage-wise, I would probably say, from what I've seen, articles back then and articles now, I'd probably say that we've moved about, I would say over 50% in the other direction.
Towards opinion media?
Yes, totally.
Right.
Because now you've got the rise of, citizen media, citizen journalism, right? anyone can be a journalist nowadays, and anyone can beat a news outlet to a story by being in the right place at the right time. And we now have our devices which we can use to capture things and send it here and there, and it travels so quickly, this information, right? So yeah, I think we also resonate with what we already want to hear. So that's a whole nother conversation. But I would say that opinion and, factual media, it's totally still around, and it's totally still a part of what news companies set out to do. Yep. But on the other side of that equation is citizen journalism and platforms that everybody has access to, that perhaps our attention's actually more drawn to these days than an online news outlet.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if a media company could be 100% objective. I mean, I don't even know if that's a possible thing to do. I guess the nature of humankind is opinions,
bias, right?
And to resonate with one side.
Totally.
How much does the media then... how about this? What kind of media organisations in Australia are objective? Like, are we talking 9 News, 7 News? Are they objective? Sky News?
I guess objectivity, it's not really the goal.
Okay.
It's more sort of like to deliver a well-researched package of information, that shows both sides. And when you study media and when you study journalism, you're sort of taught not to expose one side more than the other, right? But there's always going to be a form of bias because you're, of course, going to resonate more one way and your language will reflect that. So
inevitably.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. But I think the dangers come when you have people pushing an agenda, right?
Sure.
And it's not watchdog media anymore. It's like, this person's giving me money to do this, so this is what I'm going to do. Rather than, deliver the facts and make sure people know about something sketchy that's going on or something great that's going on.
So society would obviously be better put if media were objective, but our human instincts prefer that they be opinionated more so. Do you think? Would society be better off if the truth was told 95% of the time?
I don't know, because I think that what makes us human is, our opinions, and it's our biases and it's our morals, and I think that that's an important part of a story.
Yep.
But I don't think that I think the world would probably be kind of weird if everything was told objectively all the time.
Right.
But I also think that there's danger in going too far the other way, if that makes sense.
The political division has been immense.
Totally.
Over the last, I don't know how long, probably 10 years, it's really ramped up.
Yeah.
Is that a result of the media and, say, the percentage shift towards opinion media?
I would say it's a result of our exposure to media, right? Because these opinions, I would argue, they're not new opinions. They're opinions that have always been around. But the chances of you finding 1 million people with the same opinion as you and being able to access them and have conversations with them instantly has never before been possible, like it has since social media and the internet were invented, right?
Cool.
So yeah, that would be my answer to that, is it's more about our access to those opinions than all of these new divisions, if that makes sense.
Okay. So are we just more aware now?
Totally, yeah. I would say we're more aware of not only what other people are thinking and whether or not it resonates with us, but we're also more aware of, injustices in the world, people's personal experiences. Because, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement, if you look at the way that that really got some flame again, it was through, George Floyd and Trayvon. It was basically, people had phones, people could film it, people could, send it to each other, people could talk about it instantly. And that has never before been a thing. People would look to, the 6 o'clock news to hear about that story. Whereas by the time it gets to the 6 o'clock news, it's already gone through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It's been everywhere. It's broke the news, broke the internet.
So what's the future of media like then? If social media has, almost replaced the rapid turnaround of news and information, and say YouTube isn't also a platform for that, then where are media organisations going?
So when we talk about the mainstream media, the biggest shift, in over the past century has absolutely been the death of the print industry, just the severe decline of the print industry. Newspapers, magazines, people aren't really buying those anymore. People aren't turning to those to consume their media. So when you think about, a newspaper, every day one's published, right? But you have to wait till the next day to hear about what happened during the day before,
Sure.
That's not the case anymore. So what instead you have is you can hear about something just by someone seeing something on Facebook and texting you about it or sharing an article with you. And that's a lot quicker. So it's a struggle for these, traditional outlets. They've kind of tried to adapt by, jumping on the internet and having websites, for example, like rather than NT News will take, for example. NT News has a print newspaper, but it also has NT News, which is an online website, right? And I think that's their attempt at kind of adapting to this new market. And, but it kind of has also become a war for clicks, a lot of clickbaits. I mean, now you see the heading sometimes and that's almost the story. Have you ever seen a heading and it's like this crazy heading and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to click on that. I need to know more about that. You click on it and the story's just not anywhere near what the heading was. You might see it on Snapchat. It could even be on, like a actual outlet like The Guardian or something. But you'll read through this story and you're like, well, hang on, this is not what you implied through the heading. And that's actually an industry thing. That's because, clicks are what makes your story stay higher on the website, and I think it's something crazy like your story has about 15 minutes to perform well. And then that's what stays up for the day kind of thing. Like it's really crazy. But it's, again, without increase in consumption of content, these outlets are trying to compete with that. And they're trying to compete with things like, it's like news is competing with funny videos, which is it's kind of sad because it's like we should be able to enjoy both or want both.
I usually find that I get bombarded with ads before I can make my way through a clickbait heading.
Totally.
But yeah, it is true. And I find that that is a large percentage of scrolling through whatever, whether it be Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. It's just like these big headings, outrageous headings. Yeah. They're at the forefront and not much to back it up. But also our attention spans have gotten lower. Maybe.
Totally.
They actually have. They've gone from 12 seconds to 8 seconds now, which is lower than that of a goldfish.
Right.
Which is the goldfish is 8.5 seconds or something. So that's pretty concerning.
And isn't it funny? We always used to make jokes as kids of oh, you have the memory of a goldfish.
Memory of a goldfish.
It's it's bitten us in the butt a bit.
Yeah.
I actually read about a study recently and I'll find it for you later and you could probably link it or something because I don't want to be I just heard about this one thing on TikTok. It's not like that.
Yep.
No, but I read a study about people in our generation and our inability to hold down jobs for a long amount of time. And what it sort of suggested was that we struggle to not feel instantly like we're making an impact, right? That's never really, of course it's always been a thing. People want to do something significant with their lives, but people in past generations are a little bit more conditioned for the long road.
Yep.
We're not. We kind of jump into something and if it's not working right away, it's we don't really have this sense of delayed gratification that it's going to pay off later. It's kind of like, nah, something else will work. You know, I'll make something else work. And it's that attention span of us just wanting the next thing and the next thing and the newest thing and the best thing.
In a world full of almost sold hopes,
right?
But that's just seems like an inevitable consequence.
Yeah.
You know, people are told that they can do this and this and this, and it may well be true, but I think there's immense benefit from just writing something and being patient.
Yeah.
And I guess we're not told that. The interesting thing, though, is that I don't know if you've seen the studies about delayed gratification, but it's actually gone up over the years.
Yeah.
And they assess that through a marshmallow test where in kids it has gone up at least, where they put a kid in a room. You've probably seen a video of this, and they put a marshmallow in front of him and they say, we're going to be back in this amount of time.
Yeah.
Or they don't give them a time and say, if you don't eat this marshmallow, we'll give you 2 marshmallows.
Yeah.
And you
when
can
we
eat.
come back.
Yeah. And so that's been done. And that's a pretty fair test, you know. That doesn't really have any influence on generations at that time.
Simple.
It's simple.
Yeah.
And any kid can do it. And it's gone up, which is interesting and quite contrary to what we would think.
Right.
Why is that? Like what's going on there? Why is it that in a world where everyone seems so impatient, they're moving from job to the next, people can't sit for more than 10, 20 minutes at a time, has the levels of delayed gratification, which is a beneficial thing, gone up?
I think we're smarter.
Okay.
And we kind of know what it means if we wait. Do you know what I mean? Like from a younger age, we're kind of like each generation is getting more intelligent. That's just the way it goes, right? Because of our access to information. And, you know, if my mom comes in, I mean, I'm imagining I'm a kid and I might have acted differently, but like if my mom comes and puts a marshmallow in front of me and she says, you know, if you just wait, like you can have another marshmallow, and she goes away, like I know I'm getting another marshmallow when she comes back because I trust my mom. So I may as well just wait and have 2 marshmallows. I know what that's going to feel like later. And so I'm able to do that. But I think our generation, you know, is a result of parents who were built on like this sort of like go get. Because we really haven't had time yet to shape the world, right? So whatever the world looks like right now, and I'm not saying that we can't take responsibility for things yet, but my point is like it's kind of come from a generation before, you know?
That patience and that understanding that you're going to get this if you wait.
Yeah. You know that that's the way that things work.
Right.
So if you just like hang in there. And I have seen some of these videos, and we're talking about little kids.
Little kids,
you know, like really little kids.
It's bizarre how much they know. Like how much the world influences them.
Yeah. And then you can get into all of the, you know, like genetic, the way that we pass down and how we just inherently know things and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, honestly, I think it's just, you know, our access to information and everybody around us also having access to information the same way that we do. Because that's the difference, you know. Like it used to be you had to be really good at researching and maybe be in an academic environment to have access to certain information, right? You'd have to actively seek it outside of school. So that's not the case anymore, you know. If I want to know something, I'll just Google it right now, which is actually insane when you think about it.
It is insane. And more importantly, almost, everyone else also knows it.
Totally.
So you can have discussions about it. Whereas before it would feel like, I mean, you know, I can't speak because I'm not 45 or 50 or whatever.
Yeah, we can pretend.
I would imagine that there would be a select few that would be very well versed at a certain topic and just hold it within themselves because they have no form of getting that out. I guess maybe that's a reason why the mainstream media has declined and things like podcasts and long form discussion, YouTube videos or whatever have increased,
Yeah.
people are sick of the edits and the fakeness and the 5 minute
The scriptedness.
the scripted interviews and the 5 minute interviews where you've got 8 people on the set, 8 academics, whatever they may be, all barging to get one line in.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just summarizing with whoever is running the segment and their opinion. And you're kind of just more lost than you went in.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas a podcast, I've noticed that it is so unforgiving, and so is YouTube videos. It is so unforgiving to edits.
Yeah.
Like, it loves the warts and the ugliness and the mistakes and the imperfections. And it just, people don't want you to edit or to cut. They just want to hear the real you.
Yeah. I mean, it might not relax some people, but like what I would say is it's sort of like when I'm listening to a podcast, for example, I agree with you. I think I love all of those bits, people getting to the questions and people making mistakes and thinking about why they said what they said and maybe coming back and saying something different. You know, I think that's, for me, that's a way better way to get to an understanding of something than to have it be, you know, behind a hidden agenda already.
That's one of the frustrating things for me as well, and maybe you as well, as a university student of people our age. I remember I went to university and there was, the first time I went, there was heaps of people my age that would protest on a highly controversial issue, or, you know, raise their hand in class and speak like they know more than the professor. And you just see so much of that now through technology, through Instagram, where people are just sharing posts that they have absolutely no idea about, but that fits their kind of group narrative.
Yeah.
And that rises their status within that said group.
Totally.
And I just get frustrated because my friends and the people that I affiliate with give that care when speaking about a subject.
Totally. To the other side, you mean?
Of course. To any subject.
Yeah.
Like, if I were to have an opinion, I would have to be well-read. Not even well-read, just to have a grasp of both sides, appreciate both sides, and then come to my conclusion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be just sharing something for the sake of sharing it.
No, that's so awesome. That's really rare nowadays.
It is rare. And
it shouldn't be.
No.
Especially with the access to information that we do have.
I know. It's lazy.
Yeah.
And it's disrespectful almost.
Yeah, another thing on that topic while we're on it, when we talk about Instagram, Facebook, and like you made a really good point about people sort of conforming to this group that they're in and resonating with other people who believe the same things. And it's actually a very strategic algorithm that's been put in play here by companies like Instagram and Facebook, right? And you kind of give away your alignments by liking things, commenting on things, you know, what your pictures look like and who you follow and all of that sort of stuff. And that actually leads to this kind of perfect little wrapped up serving of what we know you're going to like and what you're going to want to keep looking at. And your attention is the currency for these companies, right? And so it's frustrating because you're like, oh my gosh, people are just posting these things and everyone's going, oh my gosh, yes, like, amen, like, love what you're saying. And there's no real depth behind it. I had a conversation with someone once and it was like, it was this, and this was before I really knew much about Trump. This was years ago, right? And I was like talking to them and they were like, oh, I love Trump. He's such a great president. He's done such great things for the States. And me being like, okay, great. Like, what has he done? Like, I have no idea. Literally no idea at this point in my life. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, what's he done? And they're like, oh, just like heaps of great things for the economy. And I'm like, well, what's he done for the economy? Because I'm not an expert on economy, right? I just was like, what's he done? No, there's no depth behind these bold statements, really bold statements, like opinion swaying statements. And it's like, that's kind of terrifying. I don't know. It kind of freaks me out a little bit.
It is. I think the lure to social media and those kinds of 5-minute clips is that they give the people the oversimplification of those clips, give the people the perception that they can digest that information
Right.
and then splurt it out.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
Totally.
reading a book doesn't give that same lure, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you pick up a book and you read the first page, you've digested more information than you would have from a 5-minute news video.
Yes.
But you would have, no confidence or audacity to go out and regurgitate what you've just read. And I think that's really, really dangerous. And it's what we're seeing like on a constant basis, especially with people our age, which is really, really frustrating.
It is.
And I think it's when I see these people that are talking about a specific topic or sharing something on their Instagram, it doesn't strike me, and no matter how virtuous that post may be, right? They could be sharing about Ukraine.
Yeah.
They could be sharing about the kids in Africa. They could be sharing about Black Lives Matter. It doesn't seem that they have any agenda to make the world a better place.
No.
It just seems like they're trying to raise their virtuosity
Absolutely.
to their friends. And it's like really, really, really sad.
It's super frustrating as well because it's like, these are world issues and they're affecting like huge amounts of people. And of course we want like to help people who are going through something like that or to be able to make an impact. But it's like, it comes back to the laziness. But it also comes back to desensitivity, desensitization to these sorts of things. We've seen it a lot now. And I mean, just one quick stat that I want to throw in here at this point is like, when the world's first horror movie was released, have you heard about that?
No.
That story? I actually can't remember what the title is, but it's released, right? And it's in black and white, complete black and white. You had people in the cinema throwing up, passing out, like seeing blood in black and white. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like that would not be scary at all, right? But it's this like gradual desensitized, result. We see this thing and like it gives you this instant, like it's like it sets something off in your brain and then you see it again and it's not as intense. So.
And you're chasing that same high.
Yeah, totally. But what I guess what it comes to if we use Ukraine, for example, it's like we're so far removed from I know us in Australia are, at least, or in the West, from that group of people, their cultures, their customs, what an everyday looks like for them, what they sound like, what they, what their traditions are. It's like, for most people, it's really hard to empathize with that when it's just like so far removed from what their everyday experience is, right? And that's really frustrating when people like that just jump online and go, oh my gosh, pray for, Ukraine.
Right.
It's like, of course we need to be talking about it, but like when the trend ended, so did their posts, you know what I mean? And that happens so often.
And that's sad in
Really
and of
sad.
itself because where does that leave the people of Ukraine?
Yeah.
Or where does that leave the people of that tragedy? And it is like deeply, deeply frustrating because there's this flurry of posts and all your friends are posting about it or whatever and the media's going bizarre. And then 2 weeks later, you're wondering where it's gone.
Yeah.
And the same friends are posting
Different things.
photos of them going out to town.
Right.
No objection to photos of them going to town, obviously.
No, but it's just like,
But
where
it's-
was the genuine concern,
That's
right?
right.
And also when you have conversations with, I don't know, but for me, like the same friends, it might be like, and it's not their fault, like it's just the way things are at the moment, but you'll have conversations like, oh my gosh, have you heard about what's happening in Ukraine? It's like, yeah, crazy. Anyway, like that's the, what's the, what's actually happening? What's going on? Why is, Vlad acting this way? I say Vlad like I know him personally, but why is Vladimir Putin acting this way? What's going on?
I personally call him Poots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one who abbreviates, this guy's name. So I feel like, do I have the right to do that? I don't know. Poots. Yeah. It's just like, it's weird to me. And it's really unsettling, and it's so frustrating. You're right. It's like, I just want to have these, like, where we come to this resolution. But I would also argue there's no real leadership for things like this. Like, there's no real steps by step how to, be there for people who are going through this, be there for people who are going through that. And, that doesn't excuse the behavior. It just sort of means that I can sort of understand why things are the way they are.
Yeah. I guess it would be tough for a teenager or someone of our age to actually make a difference.
Yeah.
Other than by means of social media.
And understand what it would actually take to make a difference. Because it's like, what does a positive difference look like from here? Right?
But then again, you can almost always differentiate the realness and the fake.
Totally.
You can just get a vibe of whether someone's genuine or not.
Yeah.
Back on that desensitization topic, one of my areas of intrigue have been like, why are we so interested in TV shows like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy, for example? And that's bizarre, the story that you told of the horror movie, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's like this, I've come to my opinion that it's just like this sadistic desire that we have as humans to be attracted to negative news or negative stories or people getting hurt, violence.
Yeah, well, I personally had an infatuation with like the nuclear threats. I don't know. Like, I don't know if you heard about those. The like Russia's recent nuclear threats.
Yep.
And that whole like kerfuffle with Biden and.
Yep.
I was just like so. I mean, there's just something about like the drama of it all that we're so drawn to, and it's like, in no way did I want a nuclear war to break loose. That's not really, like, if you went to like that, my actual core, and like questioned that, whatever that would look like, no would be the answer. I don't want a nuclear war. But, it's so, that kind of thing, of course we have to give it the time of day because it's a very serious thing, but we shouldn't be even like, that's not the issue here. The issue is that, you've got people in concentration camps at the moment in Ukraine and they're struggling, right? It's not this like, I might press a button and I might press it back and, president's hint, maybe they're going to go to nuclear war and what will that mean for the world? It's like, that's just, again, it's just like something that grabs your attention because of like the grandeur of it all, But yeah, like you said, it's just, and Dharma was a big one for me. I actually couldn't watch it. Did you watch it?
I'm up to episode 9 at the moment.
Okay.
And but I had to take a break at episode 6 for like 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, me too. Okay, so I couldn't watch it at the start. My partner watched it and he was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And I just like, Evan Peters, that's his name,
what
right?
a phenomenal actor.
Incredible. But he was freaking me out.
Yeah.
Like looking at him and just like watching, it was terrifying. But I guess like the point is something like that, because we already knew what happened, like you already know that these victims die and that he gets, whatever. I won't spoil anything for you. But the story. If you've heard of Dharma, you kind of know how the story went down. So you're sort of just like rewatching these like events that have been lived. There's no real, what's going to happen? So the fact that something like that grabs your attention in that way, it's not like a true crime documentary. It's more like, it's like a full series as if, and they take you through it as if you don't know what's going to happen, but you do. And it's like, it is kind of sick for us to be able to sit through that.
Yeah, it's bizarre to me. was having a conversation with a girl about the same topic, like
Yeah.
why are we so interested in Dharma? And she said that it was for self-preservation for herself, that she wants to be aware of the dangers that she faces. But I think it's deeper than that, you know?
Yeah.
I think that if it was actually a concern about self-preservation, then you would just type up a YouTube video, how to learn martial arts, or something
gonna
like that.
say, I would
how
go
to
to a
protect
karate
yourself
class.
in the street,
Totally.
something like that. But this is
yeah.
like this. It's unexplainable, and it is sick, and
It's like a car crash, right?
Mm.
Like someone gets into a car crash in front of you and you can't look away. It's
Mm.
that same analogy. It's like we see something go down and like we are absolutely curious about it, you know? There's never this like just, oh, that's painful.
I can't
I'm gonna
look.
I'm
Yeah.
going to look away. So, you know, that has something to do with it. And I'm no behavioral scientist, so I don't really know like why we are wired the way we are. But there's definitely something in that. You know, the fact that they've come out and released and they knew it was going to do well. Like they would have hoped it would do well. So they've come out sort of and made it in a way that they know will be drawn to. But you're right, stuff like that is sick. And if you think about that horror movie, you know, like it makes me laugh thinking about watching a horror movie in black and white where like, you know, the effects are really bad and like all of that, you know. But back then, that was the first sort of exposure to that sort of thing.
Yep.
Especially at a time when, you know, serial killers weren't really a thing yet and people didn't really hurt people. Everyone went to church and it was just like, you know, it just wasn't a thing. Like hurting people was a really bad thing.
Do you think so?
Like I just mean like in communities, like, you know, I just don't think that there were that many murderers running around at that time, as much as there might be now.
Right. I would push back on that, and I would say that it would be the exact same.
Right.
Serial killers, rapists, murderers, you name it, assaults. But I think we're exposed to it more, which gives us the sense that the world is becoming worse.
Totally.
And it's a part of the reason why I guess the future generations have grown up in this safety net of like, you know, you can't go outside and play for longer than this, or you have to be with some friends. Like back in the day, my mum and dad used to just go out and their parents would let them out and they would run around or whatever for hours and hours, and then they would come home at 8 p.m. at night, 9 p.m. at night. I think the high exposure we have to all this stuff, to these Jeffrey Dahmer videos, Ted Bundy, true crime, is just making us so overly protective and scared, even though that is like a really low % chance of happening.
Yeah.
And I would say it would be the same. Like, I just couldn't picture a world where it gradually got worse, like the murders got progressively worse, or the rapes, or because I think there's evil people. And
there always have been, right? I mean, you look back to like, it's a really good point. I think it's a constant like this, but I would say that the argument of it always being around is more like here, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So it's like, yes, you know, you get those copycats and people who like maybe go, oh, I've been having thoughts like that, I might act on it because he did. Or, you know, you get like, I mean, I agree. I don't think that the world is just like getting radically worse when we talk about murders and rape and all of that sort of stuff. But I agree that we definitely are exposed to it a lot more. And you're so right. Like, you just would not catch me, you know, running around at night or even just walking down like an alleyway at night by myself. I'm just not interested in what that could mean or like what that could result in for me. But back then it was just like not something that was talked about.
No.
So people didn't really know any better. And it totally I'd say with the improvement of technology, you also have a lot more people being caught. Like you probably used to have a lot more missing people, you know? But yeah, I agree. I think our exposure to, you know, the bad has increased so much. And it's always existed, but we haven't always, you know, been so alerted to it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree
Right.
with you. I think that's a fair call. So another thing about media consumption is I've noticed that like a lot of people our age just won't actually read like mainstream news outlets. You know, like I just don't think that most people I talk to, you know, the last time that they, like I just don't think they usually would sit down and just read for the morning The Guardian or, you know, it just isn't a thing anymore. Maybe it's old habits and they've died hard, you know, with like our grandparents used to do it because that was their only way of consuming, you know, knowledge and news and all of that. And then our parents kind of had access to a bit more, but like not as much as we do now. Then it's just like gone rapidly upwards since then. But I guess like you do jump on these outlets and it's so depressing. Like the stuff that's being covered, it's like there's a war going on here and, you know, another murder here and this happened here and, you know, climate change, global warming, this person's doing this bad thing to this person, and it's just like it's really overwhelming.
It gives you no hope.
Right?
Yeah. How do you tackle that though? There seems to be no real solution. I mean, you can
Further
go live
research, I would say, is my personal way of dealing with that is like, and there's no right way to do it. Like whatever brings you a bit more, I guess, peace with it all. But like for me, it's like I'll hear something, and inevitably I'm probably gonna like start to form an opinion from the first thing I hear. It's just like the way that, you know, it happens. You hear something, you either kind of agree with it or don't, just based on what you already kind of believe in. But then it's taking that next step and going, okay, like, you know, for example, when I hear climate change has done this, this and this is where we're headed. I go, okay, well, what is climate change? What does that actually mean? What's it gonna, you know, and you just go further than the headline, right? Or than the initial news story written by that one journo. And you just seek a bit more.
You delve deeper.
Yeah, which I would think is just common sense.
Right.
Right.
But it's an illusion now. Like, I mean, people are... That's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Except for academics.
Yep. I would say it's got something to do with trained minds, right? And when I say, like, you know, going to uni is so much more than just, like, getting a specifically, you know, curated degree with information on what you're thinking you're going to work in for the rest of your life. It's more than that, because you're actually like you're exposed to, and I'm not saying that everyone needs to go to uni at all. This is just my personal experience. And when I look at some of my friends who haven't gone, this is what I'd say we have in like this, the things that we maybe do differently. When I hear something, like I competently research something and know how to research something, and you know, you learn how to work through with deadlines. So you've got like timing on it, and that's all stuff that prepares you for like the corporate world and whatever. But there's also a lot of skills in there. Like, you know, I mean, researching stuff you don't really care about, for example, like making yourself learn about something you don't really necessarily want to know about, right? Like that's all really important, like learning opportunities. Because what happens when we have an opinion on something, someone comes in with an opposing opinion, like most people, I would say, don't actually want to hear the other side. Not really interested, because it contradicts what they believe and what they have decided to resonate with, right?
Yep.
So, and you get that all the time now. Like you get people that just, they'll see one TikTok video and it's fact. And that's what they roll with. And it's what they tell everyone for the first time. And then people hear about it for the first time as if it's completely correct because that's the way they heard it and they've just regurgitated it like that. And it's just this like, this awful thing of Chinese whispers and yeah.
Yeah. I guess we were having a conversation before about you having conversations with your friends about different people and I guess this ties in with the Trump story where the guy had said that he really likes Trump but didn't know any of his economic policies.
Right.
You had a different story about another influential figure of recent times, Andrew Tate. It's the same for the other side, right? Like the people we associate with would regard Trump as evil or a bad person.
Right.
Predominantly because we're young and, we probably have a tendency to associate with the left more.
Yeah, it's also about like the way that he's portrayed in the media.
Of course.
Right. And
but yeah, another interesting, you can expand on the Andrew Tate.
Totally. I'll just what I was saying was Andrew Tate and his opinions have proven very controversial in recent times, right? And he's an interesting one because he came out of like nowhere to me. I don't know if you.
He'd actually been trying for a while to get on the spotlight. I think was the general kind of gist of Tate. Yeah.
And I remember just like hearing about him one day, and my friend, I went to her house and I was with her brother who's a few years older and her sister who's a few years younger, and he's sort of like he's a fighter. He's a martial artist, right? So he actually respects that side of Andrew Tate. Like I think does he fight or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he likes the
I'm
fight
not Andrew
stuff.
Tate enthusiast, by the way. You're making me seem like
No. But he you're like, I don't agree. He's a fighter and he's just like knows what he wants. And so he was just like, that's how he came across his radar was the fighting. And then when he looked further, he's like, whoa, this guy's really making a lot of people upset. So it was a conversation at dinner time, really. And he kind of asked us what we thought about Andrew Tate. And I was like, don't know, like haven't really heard much. I do remember reading somewhere that he said something about, rape being the woman's fault or something. And I just brought that up and I was like, but I really don't know anything more than that. Like I read that somewhere, probably on Instagram or something. And he was like, oh yeah, like I can understand like why people are sort of like forming that opinion. But like, and I was like, well, do you have a video? Like I want to see it.
Sure.
And he pulls up this video and it's like Tate talking about how, if he had a daughter, he would teach her not to, walk home at night because bad people exist and it's just important to protect yourself or something like that. And I was like, it's an interesting thing. Like it wasn't that radical compared to what I'd read, right? Like it wasn't like his opinion was clear that he just thought that, there's bad things happening in the world all the time. And if you are going to like, as a woman, it's obvious, like you wouldn't just decide to walk around naked and go, if someone touches me, like you just don't want to be touched, obviously. So like, of course you're preventing that. Should we have to prevent that? That's a whole nother conversation. But it's like, that was where he was going, was like, I'm going to teach my daughter that, you do protect yourself and that there's bad that you obviously can't be oblivious to or you will get hurt. And I saw that and went, this wasn't what I expected because it just, and that's only one video. Like I really haven't watched anything else, but I watched that and was like, oh, it's interesting, like whatever. Didn't really upset me that much. Didn't really, and then like some of the other stuff I heard that he'd said, once again, I didn't think he had the influence that would really affect me. So, that was kind of my full stop to it. Anyway, my friend's younger sister comes down the stairs and because we were talking about it, she's like, what are you guys on about? And we sort of like, her brother asked her, oh, like we're just talking about Andrew Tate. What do you think of him? And she was like, she just lost it. She was like, no, he's an effing idiot. Like I hate him. I hate what he does to women. Like I just think he's the worst person. Like he's just so awful. He's disgusting. And I was like, whoa, like she really hates Andrew Tate. Like, damn. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what about him? Like what is the worst thing? Like why do you hate him so much? And she goes, oh, well, I don't know. I've never really seen anything that he said or anything like that. But like, I just know that people hate him.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. That was like, I don't know why that terrified me so much. It just did. I was just
really
like,
kind of gave you some concern.
Yeah. I was like, that's some real hard in front of your face perspective on just like how easy it is nowadays to form an opinion from one thing.
from a TikTok or a
Yeah. Or your friend
Instagram
saw a TikTok and
post
they
or
told you.
share.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
And like, you kind of have to go, what are the dangers of that down the track? Because we haven't yet been the generation with considerable political influence. We haven't been the biggest group of voters yet. And as we come into those sorts of roles and we sort of go, okay, like who do we want shaping the world that we're working in, providing for our families like all of that. It's kind of like, my gosh. But yeah, the Andrew Tate thing, that was a real like wake up call. I was like, wow, I did. And she's only a few, like maybe 3 years younger than me. I was like, this is out of hand.
I had a similar experience, or I've had similar experiences with another academic scholar that I know that I really like, and he's a really controversial figure.
Mm-hmm.
And people just seem to hate him.
Right.
And I just cannot grasp why, because I've seen like hours and hours and hours of his work. It's Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And I really, really, really like him.
Me too.
And it was really interesting. And the thing that woke me up and scared me was that when I first started reading him, I remember I would bring him his book. I bought his book and I would bring it to work. And I'd be really scared. Like I would hide it. I'd almost put it under my jacket or like try and, tuck it behind my leg while I was walking past people. I was really scared for like what people would think of me reading this man. And then I had read some of the book. Anyways, my opinion was the same. Like, hey, this guy's has this view. Sure, I don't like this view. This is why I don't resonate with this view. But this is great.
Yeah. Or
and
like, I just learned something about this.
Of course.
And, maybe I think something differently about this. But that's what academic scholars do. They challenge your thinking. They bring this like deeply researched, knowledge to the table, and they work so that we can be like able to digest it. Right.
And learn.
Yeah. That's their role.
But it's a common sense reaction to have, to be like, okay, I don't agree with this, but I agree with this, this and this.
Totally.
And this is why. And that's a more well-formulated argument and respectable argument rather than just saying, I hate this guy because he said this. Like one thing out of his 100 podcasts for 3 hours. And he had an argument. Nietzsche, I don't know if you've heard of Nietzsche's work. He was an author that's died long ago, but he said Nietzsche was a controversial, polarizing figure back in his time with his writings. But you don't just pick up Nietzsche's book and throw it away. Like, you don't throw away Nietzsche,
Yeah.
And the same message. You dissect what you don't like.
Yeah.
And then you expand your knowledge with the things that you resonate with.
Totally.
And also another thing that stuck with me through university is one of my professors saying that an argument, a real argument, is going against your presuppositions, making the counter argument as strong as you possibly can, and then coming to a conclusion. And
totally.
For some reason, that just inspired me so much.
Yeah, I absolutely love that.
Because I was like, wow, and it's just not what you're taught. Like, it's what you're taught is...
But you hear it and it seems like common sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what you're taught is this topic, this controversial topic, what's your opinion? And that's it. That's the end of it. And so you've got 3 seconds to talk about this with your mates.
Right.
Or you've got...
Until like... and it's like this... Sorry to cut you off, but like you like expose yourself because you don't actually like... That's what people think. They're like, oh, you've in 3 seconds given away that you're like this. I'm like, 3 seconds is not like enough time for me to really unpack something. Right? So yeah, I agree.
And yeah, so I think that's really a beautiful thing, which is to make the other side's argument as strong as you can.
Yeah.
And then formulate your own opinion.
Yeah. I think everyone should take that away from today and really just like, that's awesome.
But the lack of that is also so much to do with the big political divide. Like I was having a conversation with another person, and she had said that we were talking about Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And she had said that if my boyfriend listened to Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan, it would be done. Like we're over,
Really?
And the consensus of the conversation was, if he doesn't conform to my views or believe what I believe, then we're done. Then like divorce, breakup, whatever.
Oh my God.
She's thinking that her argument is right.
Yeah, without
She's
any
young, in her 20s,
Yeah.
That's presupposed on the idea that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
If someone doesn't conform to your views,
Right.
then they're done. They're out of your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's just predicated on the assumption that you're right.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't. Yeah, that's also another reason people just think that they're right.
Yeah, and I'm young. Like I'm 20 years old.
Mm.
And I'm happy to, sit here and say I don't know that much about that much at all.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of people in this world who know a lot more about a lot of things than me. But what I can do is just seek to learn about as much as I can. The more you know about anything, the more well-read you are on anything, the more enjoyable I find it to have a conversation with people like that and to really bounce off, because it's like this collaboration of information, right? You have, you know something about something and they teach you about it, and then it sparks your interest, and then you go home and you do your own research, and then you come to your own opinion about it, and that's a beautiful exchange of knowledge, and that's how learning should be, right? But I fear that we're really not heading in that direction right now. And I just want to bring up that point that I made before about, the algorithms of these social media platforms and how what they sell is. Have you seen the social, no, not the Social Network. What is it called? Social Dilemma.
I've not seen it, no, but I've heard about it. It was on Netflix a while ago. Yeah.
Now, obviously, once again, not everything in that was fact, but it's speculation from people who've worked in the industry. So they're kind of probably as close as, because, Google doesn't even just come out and be like, this is how we rank our SEOs,
Sure.
It's just not something that they give away, because that's the money, right?
Yep.
But I really recommend you watch that, first of all.
Okay, will do.
But also when you really get to the nitty gritty of, and you look beyond just the swipes and the likes and the comments and stuff, and you think about what it actually is that's going down when you're scrolling through these social media platforms, how it's serving you information, why you spend hours on a For You page on TikTok. It's there's some really brilliant minds behind these algorithms, and they're giving you things that you want to see, that you agree with, and you follow. I mean, how often have you heard the story of someone having an argument with someone and then they're just I'm just going to block them on
I used to do that all
Instagram.
The time. My mates are going to crack up when they hear this.
Yeah, you're just I'm going to block them and or I'm just going to unfollow them and see if they notice or something. And it's you're then disassociating with them because of what they've done, right? Or and on a place where it actually, I mean, we could laugh about it, but it actually does matter, in this day and age, to a lot of people, how you're perceived on social media. And so you've disassociated with them, and that it just brings us to cancel culture. And that's something that kind of is also frightening, because it's people should be allowed to make mistakes, and don't get me wrong, there are some mistakes that, shouldn't be forgiven so quickly, but people should, I mean, if it's just I don't know, Ariana Grande says something kind of controversial, or actually let's get a little bit heavier than that, your favorite artist is Chris Brown, but because of what he did to Rihanna, it's like, nah, cancelled. And if you listen to him, then you're awful. And it's like, are we not able to like to go, okay, don't agree with that, really think that was awful, but also cool music, you know? And it's like, it's again with those, if you're watching Jordan Peterson or something and you go, love what he said about that, find that so interesting, would love to know more about that. Oh, what he said about that didn't really hit with me well, but that's okay. We don't have to agree on everything, you know? It's that same thing of like, I just find it really frustrating to talk to people who just like buy into cancel culture. I think it's awful.
But that's resent, right? Like these are the people that think that they have deep empathy and that they're caring for the victims in the matter. You know, if someone says something bad, then there's obviously going to be someone on the other side of it that's copying that. And so these people, this mob of cancel culture that are doing the cancelling, they think that they're deeply empathetic for the victim. But it's resent, you know? It's like, it's hatred, it's division, no empathy at all.
No.
It really isn't. And like, love in this world, getting to a state of acceptance with yourself and other people is understanding.
Right.
And this cancel culture trend or this mob has none of that.
Nah.
But the thing that gives me hope is that these are the people that will get cancelled in the future.
Totally. Yeah.
Which is really, really
reassuring.
Reassuring.
Yeah, well,
it's time.
You gotta,
because you what comes around goes around, and you don't know what's gonna be around in the future. Like we have no clue what we can and can't say in 20 years' time. All we can hope is that we can have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and that people will accept what we think. And if they don't, they'll tell us, hey, this probably wasn't right. You know, maybe look at this, and this is my opinion.
Yeah, but also my opinion might not be right either.
Right,
so
of course.
Here's just my 2 cents.
Of course.
You know. Yeah.
And cancel culture is like this big, like, if you imagine a mountain and just this boulder coming down.
Yeah.
And you're just there, just one person just trying to push it.
Yeah.
And it's like always just a flurry. It's scary. Like, it's scary to see these people that get deplatformed so quickly.
Right.
Because of one thing they said. But the other scary thing, and this ties in with like the wave of media that we were talking about with certain stories like Ukraine, where there's a peak and then it just goes straight down.
Yeah, and it's a quick peak too.
It's a quick peak. And this cancel culture mob has this quick peak. Like, I remember Joe Rogan saying something controversial in one of his podcasts about COVID, and all the celebrities, not all of them, but a lot of celebrities were getting on the trend. Like, we want Spotify to remove Joe Rogan, or we're going to remove all our music from Spotify. Like Taylor Swift did that, some other, and people were like, yeah, get him off. The best thing you can do when that happens to you is say nothing. But just say nothing. Just go about your life. Just don't apologize. The worst thing you can do is apologize.
Yeah.
And that goes to show that these people don't want an apology.
No.
Like, they don't want you to fix yourself, to heal, to feel remorse. They just want to cancel you so that they can raise their status within their said group and feel good about themselves. And that's really scary. And it's also not good that if you do something wrong, the best thing you can do to stay platformed is not apologize. Like, that's not a good thing.
No.
You know?
Super weird,
but
isn't
that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And so what had happened with Joe was that he'd said something controversial about COVID-19, and all these celebrities were threatening to take him off, and he needs to be deplatformed right now. And a week later, vanish, and they're still on the Spotify. Like, you know, their threats held no validity.
Totally. Well, another thing is, like, we all get swept up in the moment, but what it would actually look like, you know, if Tay-Tay took all of her music off Spotify. Not good things for the industry. Like, Spotify would probably be having some pretty hefty meetings with her. Her fans would start to be like, what the heck? Like, I don't want Apple Music, but...
Yeah, they'd be happy for a week. you know?
Yeah,
And then they'll
totally.
be like,
So glad she
I'm
did
going to have
that.
to pay $12.95 for an Apple Music subscription, you know? This is
Yeah,
beneficial to me.
totally. So, yeah, right. It's empty threats, and it's just this like, you know, I'm jumping on this bandwagon because people want me to do that, and whether or not it actually aligns with what I believe in or not isn't relevant, because this is what's going to get me the most attention.
Prestige.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
How much of what we say or what the media says do they actually believe? At what
Does who believe? Sorry.
To us as an individual, or to the media as a whole, to what extent do we just say things to raise our personal virtuosity or status,
Yeah.
or to get clicks in the media? How much of that do we actually believe, do you think?
It's like, I would say it's a low percentage. I would say that it's like, it's one of those things where it's not really about whether or not you believe it. I don't think that thought process even comes around sometimes. Maybe you're moved by something. Maybe you see that somebody else got a good reaction to something and you imitate that to try and get the same reaction. You know, like we are creatures of habit, and we sort of learn, like we're really good at imitating things for rewards. You know, there have been other Freudian studies that have been done, but like when he puts, you know, kids in rooms and tells them that if they move a certain way that they'll get something, or the light will go off and they have to make it go off or something. And what you find is like these people like try and copy other people so that they can do it, but really the light's random. Have you heard of like those studies?
No.
Yeah, so I actually don't know which psychologist did this study, but they put like people in a room and there were these light bulbs, and it was like if you like figure out how to move to make the light go off, you'd get this or something. And like you had people like trying to copy, like someone was making the light go off and it was like, shit, like I've got to copy that. Yep. And really they were actually just pressing the light randomly, you know, like it actually wasn't any. We had people really like, you know, dancing in all weird ways and trying to make the light go off. But we see someone be rewarded for something, and you know, we see how happy they look allegedly for being rewarded, and we want to feel that way. And so we copy what they did to try and get what they got, right? And you see that a lot with cancel culture. It's like I might put on, you know, I really stay away from putting things on my story that are like
controversial.
Yeah. Even if I do resonate with them, it's like I just don't feel like I need that kind of judgment by the rest of the world, to be honest. Nor do I feel like my putting it on an Instagram story for 24 hours is really going to do much for what I believe in. But, you know, and that, you know, like I think that when we see someone get a really good comment for like putting some, I mean, like, do you remember the black tiles thing?
No.
The Black Lives Matter. The black
profile pictures, is that?
The like you'd post just a blank black Instagram tile.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's what it's like, I stand with you.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I get it. Like I totally like got it. But like there were a lot of people, again, you can feel when it's genuine. And like you've got people that are just like seeing people go like put love hearts on there, you know, in the comments, or like, OMG, yes, like I stand with you, or getting these positive, you know, reassurances that what they're doing is a good thing. And then you just get like, it breaks the internet because everyone wants to feel that.
Yep.
And it's just like, it's just this and the clickbait stuff is the same, you know, like for me to be a successful journo, I need to create some kind of heading that's going to get people's attention. They're going to click on it. And then my story has this many clicks and it starts to trend and I've done a good job. It's like, where's the substance in that?
Yeah. It's based on this constant need for approval,
Totally.
validation, likes. It's pretty sad.
Mm.
And then you kind of get lost in what you actually believe.
Yeah.
Like the happiest people are just the ones that do what they do that don't care.
Yeah, I know. I always think
I
that.
love that, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I think that brings me so much joy that people just like create their own YouTube channels and they just do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Not focused on anything, not focused just to talk or just to get there.
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, you know, that's like a state of I don't need any external validation. I'm happy with me. And I'm just going to keep doing my thing.
Right.
And that's cool.
I think that's really cool. I think it's brave as well.
Yep.
Because, you know, we all know how crazy mean people can be and how, you know, judgmental people can be. And I think it's just like so awesome to see people just doing what they want to do just because they want to do it.
Big time.
Yeah.
Here's a question. And tell me if I'm overstepping here, but I think perhaps me and you have some similar views on this. As a person of colour,
Yeah.
do you think that you have been told or are being told what to think or believe? And if so, are you struggling to run contrary to that? Even if it is what you believe?
That's a really
because if
big
I can
question,
I can give you my experience, well, if we're talking about the media here,
yeah,
I feel like there's this general kind of vibe that if you're a person of color or someone of a minority group, that you should think or believe this, and it's like a big kind of wave, and you're just like wrapped in this bubble. And you think that the people around you are either with you or support that or whatever. And it's like all driven from emotion.
yeah,
The thing that I've struggled with over the past year is going from one extreme, thinking what I thought, which was, you know, perhaps consistent with the narrative of the media or whatever you want to call it.
Totally.
Maybe not
I'm
that
with you.
intense.
Yeah,
And then over the past 6 months, having a very, very different life experience, doing a almost 180 on my opinion, but then really struggling with the consequences of that, like what that kind of looks like when perhaps the things you agree with or affiliate with aren't the same as the people of your group. Or
yeah, I totally know
do you
what
have
you're saying.
any experiences with that?
I think definitely things from an empathetic point of view might pull at my heartstrings more than they would someone else. When it comes to like what I feel that I should believe and what I do believe, I would say that there's some separation there, because
Cool. So what you feel you believe perhaps is driven by emotion, and what you believe is driven by rationality or common sense.
totally.
Cool.
Yes, absolutely. I would say that's like right on the money.
Same with me.
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of times where something will go down and I'll read about it in the news or hear about it and feel like my reaction to it is, and I've had like being young, you have this, you're like, I feel like I should be upset about that, or I feel like I should be mad about that, but I'm just not, because I just don't feel like it not affects me that much, but I feel like it's not as simple as what, I just don't think you can just react to that, you know, and I don't think that I react. I'm not really a reactive person where I like hear something and instantly you'll just get my reaction. You won't be able to like just read my reaction, you know. I think that whenever I hear something that I feel, you know, is controversial or that people, you know, in the same minority group as me should think, it almost just is like, it's sad because I do know that that kind of a narrative does exist in society, but it actually doesn't affect my day-to-day that much, because like once again, I do really seek to form my own opinions about things. And not only to form my own opinions about things, but I do like to think I'm pretty true to myself. Like I'm not going to make up a feeling that isn't there, you know. So if I read about something that's sad, you know, if I'm not, or like something that should make me angry being the like key sort of phrase there. I'm not really one that's just going to be angry and show that I'm angry, because what's that going to do, honestly? Like I might feel angry, but does that mean I'm really going to just like go out and like
protest?
Yeah. No, I'm not big on, I think that me personally, I think the difference can be made a different way by me, maybe, I think. Yeah.
Cool. That's good to know. I think probably the best thing you can do as an individual is think as an individual.
Totally.
Right? Like form
like
your
ditch
own...
the mob mentality.
Ditch the mob mentality.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
It is.
It's communism.
Right? It totally
Like
is.
it's totalitarian, authoritarian rule. Like I should believe what the mob believes. If not, I'm either evil or they're evil.
Right.
And it's like really, really dangerous. And that's something as well that I've like been really intrigued about.
Yeah.
Especially seeing people my age in universities, is that group identity that they're so strongly affiliated with.
Kind of brings you to subtypes a little bit, doesn't it? Like if you think about like some of the subtypes that exist, like, you know, even traditionally like goth, you know, emo, the sort of like sporty, like all of those stereotypical subtypes that have existed in society, and like what brings them about, like these conformity to groups that you can identify, you know, it's super interesting.
It is interesting, yeah. And I can't get a grip on it, but I also can get a grip on it because sometimes these are people that are just struggling with who they are.
Yeah, totally.
And the group is so enticing.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this person
really knows who they are.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I can see why, but I think the best thing you can do as an individual who's trying to break free of any barriers that are in your head or whatever, like you're struggling with this, you're struggling with that, is to think for yourself.
Yeah.
I think what the group identity, like the group mob, try to do is just rule, like
think
lure
for
you
you
in, think for
yeah.
you.
Tell you what you should think.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And which is something that and that's what I was talking about when I formulated the question, was whether you had experienced that.
Yes.
And that I feel has been bred through the media.
Yeah.
Like,
I think as well when you're young and impressionable, you know, like the subtype thing is often associated with teen rebellion.
Yeah.
Right? Because at a time where you're trying to figure out who you are in the world, what you're trying to do, and like who you like, who you don't like, what you want to be, what you don't want to be. And I think when, you know, to answer that question as well, like really straight, is yes, I've totally been that person that was like doing what everybody else was doing and just like thinking what everyone else is thinking. And when you take a step back from that, it's almost weird because it's like you look at yourself and go, I don't even recognize that I would have been like that. Right? And it's not even a judgment on people who are like that. It's more just like, I'm so not like that now that I can't believe I was like that, like wholeheartedly then. But like,
it's embarrassing almost.
yeah, it is a little bit.
Yeah,
it's really
cringy,
embarrassing.
yeah.
And I go, oh, it's so annoying that things exist now that capture all of that and it's just there forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think being able to have those, you know, conversations internally with yourself and go, do I believe this? Do I not? Why do I believe this? Why do I not? You know, is this something that I'm passionate about? Is it not? You know, just all of those self-reflection questions. How people don't have that really would blow my mind, you know.
I think they would. Like, I think it would be inevitable, but maybe people choose to ignore it. I mean, you kind of have to ask yourself when something gets presented if you're passionate about it or whether you agree or whether you don't.
Yeah. Even if it's a subconscious thing. Yeah.
You know, which is interesting.
Like whatever you come to is the result of that kind of internal question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that probably gets ignored now. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't know. It's more like your desire to fit in and to be a part of a community, right? That is something that we can't deny has driven people since the beginning of time. And it's about survival, right? At its heart, I guess, maybe, I would assume that it's about, you know, you stick in a pack and you have a better chance of defeating a saber-tooth tiger. You know what I mean? Like you just, other people are safety, right? But we've come to a place now where we are living in a society where things are a little bit more, I guess, safe physically than the natural, you know.
Big time.
Right. And we haven't evolved out of that need for like community and togetherness and like agreeance. When we make a decision, we want people to go with us and stand firm with us. And I wouldn't argue that I don't want that. Like I would honestly not argue that that's not a part of like what would drive me. But it's not a part of what I settle to go with, if that makes sense. It's like, of course, like ideally I wish that, you know, I knew everything and was like able to just be like, cool, like, yes, everything's great and the world's awesome. We all know stuff and we all like collaborate and share and all of that. But like, that's just not reality.
Or alternatively, I know everything, the world's terrible, this is the cause of this atrocity, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But like, I think it's way more fun to disagree with someone than it is to have someone who just agrees with everything. And don't get me wrong, it's not like every day I want to have a battle of like whether or not I agree with someone, but it's more like it keeps things interesting. It's like if you think something and then someone comes to you with another view and they go, oh, you know, like, of course, if it's in like a respectful environment where they're not just like putting you down for having one thought. I think that's a really great conversation. I love conversations like that.
Big time.
You know, I think I think it's so much fun to talk to people who don't always agree with everything, you know. Yeah.
And it goes against that one size fits all kind of narrative. Like if you're having conversations with people you disagree with, then there's obviously no right answer. Right. Otherwise, it would just be a fact.
Yeah.
You know, like
totally.
The world's round.
Yeah.
But so much of what we see is just the one size fits all answer.
Yeah.
What is the cause of this? Evil. Or it's a social construct. Or, you know, it's a social construct made to oppress. Or this is this because of that. But then if you think about it deeper, well, why are there people that disagree? Like, why are there opposing arguments? And why are they people like me?
Yeah.
These people aren't evil.
Yeah.
Like, these people have empathy, have love, have families. So I think it's just about that understanding. Another thing that's been really weird for me, actually, is this new trend insistence that straight white males are like the inherent evil of the world.
Oh my gosh.
And like,
I'm glad you brought this up.
And like just the complete insistence that though that is the cause of the problems that we have.
Right.
And I look around at my straight white male friends and I'm like, you guys are legends.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are so caring, loving. You have little sisters, little brothers, families. You look after me. You look after everyone. Like, there's no sense of any problem or red flag or...
Right.
And they are almost made to feel bad for being who they are.
Who they are.
And, like, in some sense, I'm privileged to be a person of colour to openly talk about this and not get shut down. And it's so sad because it's just an identity politics game.
Yeah.
Like if you're a part of an oppressed group, then you can talk about said topic, and if you're not,
Then you don't know what you're talking about. And you need to shut up.
Right. It's really sad. It's like just disregarding, and it's not fact at all.
No.
What do you think? Yeah, what do you think about it?
That is a really interesting one. And I agree. I've probably given that some thought over the past few years because I mean, just from hearing that sort of like term, or I hate men, or like I hate white men, or, you know, that's what happens when white men are in charge of the world. Like, I think it's a really like disgusting thing because I don't think you can just, it's a us and them thing. And that's always been the problem, is that it's an other group is either the, you know, protagonist or the antagonist. And it's like that group is either evil or good, right? And it's this like constant battle of like whether you believe that, because for me, right, it's like stereotyping is so dangerous. I think it's just awful, and I think it puts people in boxes that we just tell them that they belong in. And I honestly think that could actually be the problem.
Big time.
You know,
Big time.
because it's like when you're told you belong in a box and this is what you are supposed to do and aspire to and behave like, then that's what you learn to do, aspire to and behave like, you know? So boxing, stereotyping and being like radically one way is not a good thing at all. And I think that like when it comes to, you know, I agree. I think that I sit there, you know, even in conversations with my friends, if we talk about like the Black Lives Matter thing, you know, being an African-American woman, I'll be like talking about it and just like watching my friends like tense up as they talk to me about it.
Yeah.
It's just like, shouldn't be like that.
No.
Because my friends have picked.
Just talk freely.
Yeah. And I've picked my friends because I like love them. Like I think they're great people. I don't feel like they would ever threaten, you know, my identity like that or like just be cold or mean. They just wouldn't be my friends if that was the case. So yeah, I agree. I think it's a sad place to be in, and it's almost like we've gone, you know, the complete other way with like wanting to work it out. Because don't get me wrong, the issues are still prominent and they're still there and they're still happening. And you have to remember that, you know, our society was built on suffering. First and foremost, that's what colonization was. You know, and we're in a post-colonial world and that's something that needs to be recognized. But as we want to move forward as an entire population, it's important to have free-flowing conversations where we get to hear about, you know, why people believe what they believe. And we get to, rather than go, okay, you believe that and I believe this, or okay, like, you know, that's really weird that you believe that, or it's not okay to believe that. What about just simply going, oh, okay, you believe that and I believe this. And now maybe we could talk about coming to an understanding about why either of us believes the way it is. It's like what you said before, making the counter argument just like as strong as you can and then forming your opinion. It's like really understanding the experience of another person and allowing them to attempt to understand yours, you know, and then you bring that together and you've got some sort of work that's been put in to like make an actual effort to know what each other are going through and why. I don't know. I just think that's not really the way things are going.
No. And yeah, I just feel like people are, like you said, being put into a box or a category based on nothing but their appearance, you know, their skin color, their sex. And it's sad because it's just a game of identity politics and whoever thinks that they're doing right I mean, it's like it's just being told what to think. Like if someone were to tell me that I'm brown and therefore I'm oppressed,
Yeah.
I'd be like, get the hell out of my face. You know?
Literally.
Like I am not oppressed
I don't-
in any
yeah.
way, shape or form. Like
Yeah.
look at me, I'm wearing a suit.
Yeah, look at me. I feel fly right now. I'm doing what I want to do.
And it's just, it frustrates me because
It's speaking that over you.
of
Right.
course, and it's undermining, and it's but it's disguised in empathy and care and all these good values, but it's not. It's just like it feels like a way to keep those people down here, and then blame everyone else that you don't agree with.
Yeah. My mum and I had a conversation recently, which was like, you know, might prove a bit controversial, but we sort of played with the idea of this term internalized victimhood and sort of what that means for people like breaking free from being a victim, right? And it's like when you're a victim, if you identify with that and you like, and I'm not talking about whether you are a victim or not a victim. That has nothing to do with it. I'm talking about if you identify as and believe that you're a victim and build your entire identity on that, right? What sort of happens is anything that challenges that challenges your identity, right? And so then you're in this situation where breaking free from that identification leaves you with no identification at all. Right? So now it's like, if I'm not a victim, then who am I? And that's another really interesting thing when you think about it. And it's you know, and when we talk about minority groups, you know, it could possibly be applied there. It could be applied to, you know, anybody who doesn't, anyone who feels that they're a victim, right? Or any victim that we're talking about. And maybe it's a result of colonization, maybe, because that was really effective, right? Maybe it's a result of, you know, not wanting to put in the work to better your life. Maybe it's a result of just other people speaking something over you. You know, it's not a fault game. It's not a blame game. It's more just an interesting way of looking at victimhood and breaking free from that. And I think it's really easy for people who are privileged to feel like, and obviously you've got this privilege guilt, right? There's another thing. And that leads to a lot of like, you know, trying to, again, telling you you're a victim and wanting to help you, but really wanting to help yourself because you feel so awful that, you know, people like you in the past have made people like me feel this way. You know, it's just it's a cycle, and it's like and I really, in fact, there's an academic named Homi Bhabha, and he wrote a piece on post-colonial hybridity, and it's a very complex theory. So I'm not going to try and like narrow it completely down. Yep. But my takeaways from it were sort of that in like a post-colonial world, right, what you get is the colonizer and the colonized. And then what happens as a result of survival is the colonized learns to behave like and survive in the world that the colonizer has created, right? And then that takes away the very thing that made the colonizer superior, because now the colonized is like the colonizer, right? But then his theory of hybridity is like about walking the line of shared understanding and knowledge of two cultures and what that looks like, you know, side by side, without I'm better than you and you're better than me and whatever. But I really encourage you to like read up on that. It's really interesting, and it kind of talks about victimization and all of that sort of stuff in a very objective way. But his theory is clear as well. So,
well, the way out of that is transcendence. Like as a group, as an individual, if you're an actual victim, then I believe the best thing you can do is transcend
totally
out of that and become the best version of you possible.
Yeah.
Not to remain in a constant state of victimhood.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that could be really, really hard. Like it could take years and years and years and years of grit and turmoil and whatnot. But there's something beautiful about that, you know, coming to grip with what you've experienced and then coming out from that.
Yeah.
And I think that's so beautiful. And I think that's against what people are being told. For example, I go to India every two or 3 years. Haven't been in a while, but we, you know, my grandpa lives in just above the poverty line, in a poor kind of town. But that's happiness.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable seeing the amount of happiness that my grandparents and my auntie and uncles and everyone that I'm surrounded with have in India. And even walking the streets, like the slums, and there's tons and tons and tons of homeless people in India.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but the kids running around, like they've got a smile on their face, you know. In the slums, they're playing on the soccer ball, they're playing on the cricket ball, and it's so frustrating when I look around here in the Western world where people are constantly complaining about their lives, or they've got this issue and they've got that issue, and it's really sad, but there's no way out of it, because I think that through suffering comes meaning. Right? Like comes true meaning in life, comes happiness. That's you find happiness through suffering. And
wow.
In some sense, growing up in such a privileged state that we're in, people don't experience that suffering.
Absolutely.
People never get to experience that suffering, and they crave it because internally we know that the tough times is what gives us happiness. If you grow up in a rich household where you're given everything, you're not truly happy because you haven't experienced
what it's like without
the bottom.
Totally.
And it's what we're seeing in the West. It's like it's a part of an explanation of why I go back to India and I see so many happy people in such terrible circumstances, and why I come back home and I see such unhappy people in such great circumstances, because people are craving that suffering, which they just don't get, and they try to find that through internalized victimhood or whatever. Yeah. Whatever you want to call it.
You're so right. Like, you can't know happiness without knowing the opposite, right? Like, even when we're sad, right? Like, when we're crying about something, the only reason we get to that place is because up until then it wasn't like that before. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but you're so right that fulfillment, that real true happiness, living like your life and just being so happy in your life, comes from knowing what it's like to suffer. Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thought almost.
Yeah. I think trying to have perspective on that sort of thing is really hard for people, you know, because have you ever had a friend or just like been talking to a person and you'll say like, oh, I have a headache, and they're like, yeah, well, you know,
this and this
I
happened
have this,
to me.
this and this.
Yeah.
And it's like this like this competition for who's got it worse. that has always been something that really bugs me. But it's also like, I guess another thing is like the term, oh, there are kids starving in Africa and you're not going to eat like this, and you're not happy. And I'm like, comparing suffering is a dangerous game, because you can't know what you haven't lived. You can't. You can empathize with it, but you can't truly know what it's like if you haven't lived it. You just can't. You'll never fully know. So, you know, that concept of not knowing happiness without having suffered, and the two opposite scales of that. I mean, like, the worse you've suffered, the easier it is to find happiness in the simple things.
Right.
You know, like, that is such a beautiful thought. And it's like, how do you escape that in a capitalist society? How? I have no idea where I even begin with that. But like, we are all consumer focused. And another thing that is super interesting about like this day and age is this wave of entrepreneurship. Have you had some any thoughts on how, like, I mean, you go back ages ago and it was like the Industrial Revolution, and it was like things that were really pushing like to be really successful, you had to be sort of giving people things that they needed, right? Like, you're filling that gap.
Yep.
But nowadays it's like, and you know, this isn't a judgment, it's just the way things are. Like, you can make a new activewear line and become a millionaire. And it's like, well, what need are you filling? Well, it's that need to consume by people. And the media plays into that a lot, right? Like, the way that the industry has changed has absolutely catered to consumers and sellers, marketers, all of that. Because it's now not about what people need. It's actually just about what they want. And you're not going to make money unless you just give people what they want.
That's right. I read this interesting thing today where it said that our values have shifted from once being focused on your family, your job, where you get the money from, love, to now a selfish kind of thought, like, what is the next thing I'm going to purchase?
Yeah.
How can it make me happy?
Yeah.
And it's kind of shifted from family to individual, and to like, how can I get the next thing?
It's like all about, it's like a me.
That's right.
World.
That's right, which is fascinating. And you've got everything at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is an escape. No, absolutely not. The escape could be, you know.
I think the escape's probably personal perspective, maybe. I don't think it's like an actual, like...
No. I mean, you're never going to escape unless you go...
That's it. That's the sad thing.
Unless you go to whichever country that has hundreds of acres that you could just live on.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to get to that, you gotta do it hard for a while. And I just think that, you know, that's been a fundamental, like, you can think about what it would take for us to solve all the world's issues, because I mean there's a lot of them, and for us to even begin to work together on that, we'd have to stop consuming for personal benefit. You know, how are you gonna like fix world hunger when you just, if you want sushi for lunch, you can just go get that? Like, it's just, it's a really like hard thing to think about, because you kind of like naturally, I don't know, for me personally, I wish I could just solve it or be a part of solving it.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's just so much bigger than that. It's like all of our customs and systems and everything, our economy thrives on that.
Big time.
So it's like, where do you even begin with knocking that down, you know?
It's a big ladder to climb, right?
Yeah, huge.
And it's not done with an Instagram post or a...
No, not even close. it's not. It's probably done with a collective shift of thinking that stems all the way to the death of the previous way of thinking. You know, like when the last person who thought like that goes, there's a space for like a new wave of thinking.
Yeah.
But like that already has to be happening, kind of thing. So I don't know.
Is it interesting, scary, positive, hopeful, either of those things for you that one person can influence that shift in mentality rather than a mass of people or the media? For example, I would say Joe Rogan or Kanye West.
I was going to say Kanye, yeah.
It is more influential than the media itself. Like, is that scary, hopeful? What do you think?
I've been just scratching the surface of this kind of research. And what I think first and foremost is that if you want to get into like the power, like the real power of people and who has that power, you kind of have to look at who, you know, owns the world. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I guess my point is like when you have considerable influence over something, it's either because you have a lot of money or a lot of people really like you and like what you do, right? So when we talk about Kanye West, for example, he's got a lot of money and a lot of people relate to him. A lot of people don't. But you can't deny his influence, that's for sure. You know, he does something. A lot of people who right now will be like, Kanye's crazy. I don't like him anymore. Still won't have a problem wearing the Yeezys around. And I'm like, that's just that you've been influenced by Kanye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and obviously being influenced by style and by like your way of thinking of different things. But in a short answer, I think it's both beautiful that people can have that kind of a platform where they can influence the masses and be an inspiration to people. I also think it's completely terrifying because with the wrong person in that kind of position, you've got, there are cases in history where people have literally like called on people to do, like to kill other people, and they'll do it. You know, if you talk about cult mentality, for example. I mean, if you think of Charles Manson, right? That's a classic case. Have you heard of Charles Manson?
No.
One of the most notorious criminals in American history. He started a cult and he killed a lot of people. Well, he was charged for a lot of murders, but he actually didn't physically kill anyone. His followers did.
Gotcha. Yep.
Right. Like he brainwashed them to think that they had to do that or, whatever it was. But, I mean, Hitler's another example, being able to, and we're talking about, Germany was a very progressive, like still is, but like at that time was extremely, ahead of the times in terms of technology and all of that sort of stuff. And you've got this guy who comes in and he convinces a whole nation of forward thinkers and innovators and, to be like this. It's like, it's very fascinating, but it's very terrifying.
I think so too. It gives me hope when people like Joe Rogan just call out the bullshit.
Yeah.
But then it also terrifies me that you've got people like Kanye could potentially be the president. I mean, it's very unlikely.
Oh my gosh, but we all thought, we've all thought
exactly
less things were likely.
Exactly. And like I really used to like Kanye.
Yeah, me too.
Not that I hate him now or anything like that, but I just haven't been listening to him much or anything like that. But his recent stuff is a bit concerning, and I think he's got some mental stuff going on, and like the fact that he's got so much influence,
Yeah.
that if he could carry that position of presidency, then that would be really scary.
Absolutely.
Like just his sporadic comments, or who knows what would happen. So there's a good and a bad side, because in some sense we're kind of dragged away from the communist regime, I guess.
Yeah.
Mass thinking of one opinion, one belief, and people like Joe or anyone for that matter can say, hang on, this is bullshit, this is why, blah, blah, blah. But then the other side, Kanye can just spurt out some things about one group of people when he's feeling a bit whoopsie or whatever.
Yeah.
And people can believe that. I actually watched a podcast.
And get behind it. Yeah.
I actually watched a podcast with him and Lex Friedman, who's one of my favorite podcasters, and I'll mention him in the intro when I do it.
Yeah.
But I just love Lex Friedman, and you should watch him if you get the chance.
Yeah, I'm going to take it down.
He also wears a suit and tie while he's doing it. And it's the same black and white suit every time. And he's a Russian man. His family had grown up in the Soviet Union, so had he. And now he's got one of the world's biggest podcasts.
Okay.
And he had Kanye West on the other day. So
I might have seen an excerpt from this.
Probably.
But like I said, I mean, I haven't really watched it because it's like a 5-minute TikTok video or something.
Yeah. This was after his anti-Semitic comments, and Lex is a Jewish man, and so and these comments had hurt him deeply. Yeah. And the reason I really like Lex is because he's just so understanding. Like, he'll get on anyone with any perspective and try and dig deeper, like try and trawl through that mud.
Yeah.
The surface level mud. And yeah, Kanye was being really crazy and sporadic and talking in these whole terms, like the Jewish media or the Jewish people, they're doing this, and Lex was really pushing back, like, there you go again, you're saying they're, like, you're summarizing a group of people that you don't even know.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, but
you're othering. I hate othering. Like, I think that's, and it makes me really sad because that's been like the root of so many problems is like when you other a group of people and consider them as different to your worth, and you're so right. Like when Kanye talks about like that sort of stuff, because I saw some of those comments and I was just like, yeah, and it's the othering for me. That's what it is. It's like, if you can talk about something and, think about it as like a collective experience of all people involved, then that's, I think, a better approach personally to like their experience and my experience. Of course, there are two separate experiences in that instance, but no experience is like right or wrong. It's just an experience.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Lex was
yeah, sounds like a cool guy.
Yeah. Lex was saying, hey, be a man, Kanye, like call out the individual, don't call out the group.
Yeah.
Like Kanye was saying Jewish media and the Jews are doing this and this and this and he's like, why don't you call out the people that have hurt you? Like rather than saying the Jewish media, what is that? Like, who was a part of that?
Yeah.
I would respect you more if you'd called out the individual that's hurt you.
Right.
And I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it was just like so interesting to see someone who had been so deeply hurt by Kanye's comments in Lex.
Yeah.
Be able to sit across him and try and dig deep into why he's saying what he's saying and empathize, but also, call out his bullshit. And I think that's what like my aim is in this podcast for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think people should aim for that as well.
Yeah. I think in day-to-day life that is so important. Being able to not react, and not just, you know, get fired up and let your emotions get the best of you. Where emotions make us human and they're an important part of our experience. You know, without emotions, life would be pretty bland.
Yep.
But not like being blinded by emotions is totally a real thing. And being able to go, okay, this made me feel like this. Why did it make me feel like this? Was it a person that made me feel like this? If so, why did that person set out to make me feel like that? Was it about me? Was it about them? You know, having those deeper, you know, thoughts about an experience, whether it's a positive or a negative one, is so important. I think it's so important. I think another thing is, you know, the media nowadays kind of relies on us not having that level of reflection. And are very successful on that. Same with, you know, even me. Does knowing that about the algorithms make me not use the app? Like, no. So it's still effective.
Yep.
You know, I might say it's a bit scary. I don't know what the real like depths of that will mean in the future for me. But does it make me stop? No, because everyone else does it, so I'll do it too. And there are I'm not being very individual in that decision, but I also feel as though if I do stop, you know, engaging with social media, I'm kind of cut off from a part of the world.
Yep.
Which I think is a very real and fair assumption to make. And yeah, us not really knowing what that even will do to us in the future, what it will evolve to, what kind of information they have or don't have of us that we maybe do or don't want them to have. It's like, you know, at the end of the day, we still pick up the app and we spend time on it. And like, is knowledge as powerful as it once was? You know, that's another conversation. It's like, yeah.
I'd say it's more powerful now. When people are ill-informed, if you're informed, you're a beast.
Yeah, totally. And it doesn't take much, hey?
No.
Have you noticed that? Like, you'll say
much.
something and then people are like, whoa, like,
yeah,
you know about that?
Yeah, I know. It's bizarre.
I'm like, man, I'm 20.
But then also to realise you're stupid is also beneficial.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
But then it's not beneficial when people around you make you think you're really smart. Like when you say something like, oh my, wow. Like,
no, you feel good for a second. You're like, oh yeah, like and then you're like, I actually really don't know much more
I know,
about
that.
that.
There's a full stop after
yeah,
that sentence.
Exactly. A full stop where like you do the personal reflection and they're thinking you're awesome and you're like, wow, like I need to up my game. I need to find someone smarter than me. Like
that's like the saying, you should never be
the smartest in the room.
The smartest in the room, but you also shouldn't be the dumbest in the room. Because then you're not going to learn.
Yeah, because it's a hindrance, right? Like being too uneducated doesn't actually provide you with the skills to learn about set things.
Yep.
But being, you know, the smartest in the room, where's the growth there?
Yeah, that's right.
It's a very lonely time.
Big time. The other thing that I want to say with the business, with the media and what we consume and how we decide to consume it is that it's so similar to a business mindset. Yeah. Insofar as pick a niche, you know, like the number one thing about growing a business if you're starting is pick a target audience, pick a niche and advertise to that audience.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the media does so well, which is why I'm so reluctant to say that there is objective media.
Yeah.
Because if there was a channel that was solely relying on the truth, that would be beneficial to everyone. But then everyone wouldn't be a fan. There's no such thing as having the whole world as a fan.
No.
You have to create diehard fans to succeed.
Totally.
And the problem with the media organisations is that they run through money.
Yeah. Well, you know Rupert Murdoch, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So like when you get into objective media, like you're right, it doesn't really exist. But what you get is, and you know, perhaps it actually never really has existed, because the people who are behind these media conglomerates are people with opinions who are born at times when, you know, most of the world thought one way, like most of the world thought another way. It's like not most of the world, but like these opinions always existed.
Yep.
It's like they built a business off of their opinion. Right. So Murdoch's media has been accused of, you know, pushing right-wing views on almost every occasion.
Yeah.
Like, and that is another massive part of our reluctance to consume media traditionally, because we don't trust these organizations anymore. What we've found is that, you know, I mean, think of Julian Assange, the journalist who exposed the war crimes in Iraq and what happened to him, you know, like he's still, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, I think he's still
he's in prison now.
Yeah, he's still in prison.
Yeah.
There was something that happened recently about him.
I think he got out of home detention and then into prison.
Yeah. Yep. Well, see, I mean, and that arguably is like a classic demonstration of watchdog media of like, the people deserve to know that this is going on. And his own, like, you know, I mean, WikiLeaks was his thing, his organization, but, you know, his own industry just turned against him and was like, you know, the American government and the defense force was obviously just like way more powerful, and people are scared to go up against forces like that. So when it comes to siding with someone who's done maybe arguably a good thing, doesn't usually lead to great things historically, and so hence the distrust in, you know, positions of power like that. And Rupert Murdoch is arguably one of the most powerful men in the world. You know, having control over what the global population consumes through one medium or another and being able to influence that, it's like, is there a greater power than that? I don't know.
Probably not.
Yeah. Because you're putting thoughts into people's heads. That's, you know, that's how you create an army, or how you create the opposite of an army. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that is real considerable influence. And if we're talking about, you know, Kanye and Joe Rogan, and, you know, even if you want to bring Beyonce into there, or Taylor Swift with her music and all of that, the person who really should be behind that conversation is someone like Rupert Murdoch, who has monopolized the media in multiple continents. It's like, it's terrifying to think about, you know, but people have become aware of that, and hence the distrust in traditional news outlets.
So we don't trust the media, you don't think?
I would say collectively I wouldn't say that our generation gives it too much thought, but I would say that, you know, the newspaper readers that came before probably got to a point where they were sick of having things, you know, like columnists write opinion pieces that they just thought were super obviously biased.
Yep.
And all of that sort of stuff. And I think that turned into, you know, I mean, I actually had this conversation with my mum before, again, because she's a journalist, right?
Yeah.
Or she was a journalist, and I was like, Mum, like, why don't we watch the news anymore? Like the late news. She's like, seen it all before. It's all the same. It's just like this, it's this formula, and the formula is applied to a different story, you know, but it's the same formula. And it's appealing to our behavior. It's appealing to what we find entertaining, as well as trying to, you know, keep us posted. But again, it comes back to like what you see on the 6 o'clock news, you've already seen 5 times before on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok that day. It's like, yeah.
Repetitive.
Super repetitive. And how can you be a leading news outlet and not be the first to deliver the news? It's like, it's just obviously a decline.
Carla, thanks so much for coming on.
No,
That was
thank
great.
you for having me. That was awesome.
Sweet.
Great conversation.
Thanks all.